another kettlebell lesson today with Jared Barrett, INK Performance. How you doing?
Wonderful, thank you. How are you doing?
Good, I'm great. Are you ready to get rocking?
I'm always ready to rock.
I know you are. Should we get right into it?
You betcha.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so today we are going to talk about accessory movements, right? So essentially accessory movements, these are going to be different movement patterns that are going to essentially come together to create the kettlebell swing as a whole. So this is kind of twofold, not only the fact of breaking down the swing, but it's also just to help you get kind of familiar with the kettlebell. Like, that's what these movements are all about, just to help you get comfortable with the movements, get the kettlebell in your hands, and figure out how to incorporate all of the other stuff that we just talked about in the last video into these positions.
Awesome.
First thing we'll do here is talk about the kettlebell itself. So when we look at the kettlebell, so there's essentially three parts that we want to look at. So this is the bell. The side handles here, these are called the horns. The last part is the handle. Okay, so we're going to get really familiar with all of these aspects. The first thing that we're going to touch on here is the kettlebell deadlift. So essentially this is the movement pattern. Now, a very common thing that we see with the kettlebell swing is people use more of a squatting pattern. So if you just kind of sit down with me like a squat, right, kind of sit your fingers down here, and then you reach, stand up, reach overhead. You see people do kettlebell swings like this, right? And then they come down and lift you. That is not a kettlebell swing, okay? And you probably feel like your quads are on fire, Not what we want here. This is all about the posterior chain, right? This is about glutes, this is about upper back, this is about hamstrings, not quads. So that's why we're gonna start with the kettlebell deadlift. So what you're gonna do is we're going to start with the kettlebell in between the balls of your feet. You want your feet underneath your hips, right? We're not going to go way out here, right? You want to be just underneath your hips, maybe just a touch wider, and your feet just externally rotated just a touch, about 10 degrees. Now, what we're going to do is let's incorporate all of the other movements that we talked about last time. So let's first off brace the core. We're going to set that upper back, so pull those shoulders down, keep it tight when we did those Ys. Core is set, and now let's hinge through the hips to point the chest at the ground, right? About a foot or so in front of you. From here, if you can't reach your kettlebell, now you're gonna bend your knees just a touch, boop, to take your grip. Once you grab the handle, I want you to try to pull it apart like a bag of chips. Right? So you're going to pull it apart, and watch my shoulders when I do this. Pull it apart. Okay? That's what we're going for. This is less about the grip. Well, the grip is still important. This is more about getting the upper back engaged. So again, put your hands in front, right? Just in front here. And now grip that handle metaphorically and pull it apart, right? Set those shoulders back. This is going to be important. So brace the core. This never shuts off. Hinge through the hips. Take your grip. Pull that handle apart. Now stand up tall as you can. That is your kettlebell deadlift. Keeping tight. Still pulling the handle. Still tight through the core. Hinge through the hips. Come straight down. Chest pointing at the floor. Not up there. Eyes pointing at the floor. Up tall. Yeah, hinge through the hip, come back down. Still pulling apart, up tall. Perfect, hinge through the hip, come down. That is your kettlebell deadlift.
Nice.
Use the cue a lot of getting tall. And this is really important. You may have heard other cues in the past about really trying to pull your hips through, right? Squeeze your glutes at the top. Right? Well, a lot of times what can happen is as we try to squeeze the glutes and pull the hips through, we end up pulling our hips forward and our torso back, right? And that starts making energy, all of our force production going this way. We don't want our energy going this way. We want energy going down into the ground. So that's why I use the cue of push into the floor and get tall. The next position that we're going to talk about are going to be goblet and rack positions. Yeah. These two positions you can use for any of your favorite lower body exercise, right? Squats, lunges, carries, right? Anything like that, you can use these rack and goblet positions, right? And again, a lot of these are going to be good assistance movements for the kettlebell swing, but it's also just going to get you comfortable and familiar with the kettlebell itself, right? So first things first, let's start with a rack position. So again, like I said, we don't want the kettlebell swing to be like a squat, but squats are a good adjunct to help us with the lower body conditioning so that when we do our kettlebell swings, we don't gas out and fall apart, right? So we're going to take the kettlebell and we're going to flip it around onto the back side of your wrist. So this is called a rack position. So now you see Amanda sitting out here over top of her shoulder. If she went, again, already, you see her hand getting tired, right? See her wrist wanting to fall back. Let's pull that underneath the chin. And now you're gonna pull your knuckles down so that the hand is in line with the forearm. This is called our rack position. And even more specific, this would be an offset rack position because we only have it on one side. Now, just like riding a horse, right? We all been on the mechanical bulls that, you're gonna stick one arm up to the side, keep that kettlebell underneath your chin, and then we're gonna use that same hinge and sit. That is your rack position squat, right? So you can feel, wants to shift you off a little bit to the side. So again, we're gonna keep that core braced, we're gonna keep those shoulders active, we're gonna keep the kettlebell in tight to the body, right? And that is going to be your
love it.
Rack position squat. If you want a different variety, we can also look at a goblet squat, okay? Now, a goblet squat, I've seen it a number of different ways, so I'm gonna show you what I've kind of traditionally seen, and then I'll show you what I like to do.
All right.
So, one of the things that you'll see a lot of coaches say is to grab the kettlebell by the horns, okay? And hold it here. But if you see where the kettlebell is in relation to my body, out here away from my torso, my biceps are getting fatigued right now just holding this,
yep.
right? So the thing here is to keep it in tight to your body, but even still like this, there's a lot of grip work happening here, which means fatigue. So what I like to do, give me some finger guns, and then just open these fingers a little bit, and we're gonna use these three fingers to grab the horns,
okay.
And these two to balance the kettlebell.
Wow,
so
yes.
Grab three fingers around the horns, then use thumb and the forefinger on either side to balance the kettlebell. Yeah, and then you hold that in nice and tight to the body.
Love it.
I just find there's a lot less fatigue here because there's a lot of natural physics providing support.
For sure.
Right? Yeah. So all the same mechanics, shoulders down, brace those shoulders, core strong, hinge, sit down, and we're looking for about elbows to thighs. Right? Coming back up, that's your range of motion. Right? That is your goblet squat.
Groovy!
No, goblet.
Oh.
Right, so now like I said, you can use either of these rack positions or goblet positions for something like lunges. So why don't I get you to grab the kettlebell in your right hand in a rack position.
Okay.
Yeah, underneath the chin.
It's gonna take some time for me to practice that.
You betcha. So take a small step back here, facing the camera, right? Feet underneath your hips. Now, we're gonna do an offset lunge. So we got the kettlebell in the right hand, so you're gonna lunge forward with the left foot. Right? Exactly. Use the left arm as a counterbalance. Lots of core work going on here. Yeah. Exactly. You can even do lateral lunge.
Ooh.
Right? But now you see how your arm wanted to drift away? Keep that in tight.
Right.
Whole arm. Yes, better.
Nice.
Yeah.
Woo.
You betcha.
I'm getting sweaty.
Perfect. So now that's a rack position. Now, if again, you got two kettlebells of the same size, we got a variety here. So we can do a double rack.
Okay.
Right? Now, you may see sometimes where people say to interlink your finger. I don't like that.
That's dangerous.
Well, it's not less of a dangerous, it's lazy.
Okay.
If we let go of the fingers, this requires scapular stability on both sides. We got to keep both sides engaged in order to, whether we're going to do our squats or, lunges or what have you. Right? Be aware of this. Keep that in line.
Awesome.
This is going to be the bottoms up position. So this is amazing for shoulder stability. Okay. This bottoms up position, essentially we are going to hold the kettlebell by the handle and we're going to hold it upside down so the bottom of the kettlebell is pointing up. Bottoms up.
Makes sense.
Right? Now, a lot of times when people see this, they'll see that bottoms up position and they think the person holding it is just squeezing the hell out of the handle. We are not, we want active grip, but we are not balancing this with our grip. We're balancing it by keeping the forearm perpendicular to the floor. Right?
Stacked.
Exactly. Keeping everything stacked. So knuckles stacked over wrist, wrist stacked over elbow, elbow in line with either the shoulder or the humerus, right? So essentially our bottoms up position, we got a couple ways that we can start with this. We can go into this bottoms up position here, and to start, bring the elbow in close to the side. This is going to be the easiest position because the load is close to the torso. You can see that the way Amanda's initially set up, her hand's a little far back in the handle, so the kettlebell is going to want to fall this way. So let's bring your hand forward about 1.5 inches. There we go. So now we got the middle of the kettlebell centered over kind of these 3 fingers, right? Now, just like we were talking about before, keep your chin back here so that doesn't fall on your face. Elbows in tight to the body. Face the camera again.
This is really hard.
Kettlebells in line with the shoulder. We do this, we're comfortable with it, and you're like, okay, Jared, piece of cake. What now? Well, let's play around with some physics. So what we can do is we take that kettlebell, we're good here. First things first, let's bring it up a little higher, because if we bring the humerus higher, okay, that brings the elbow farther away from the shoulder. This increased distance away from the body makes the stabilizers work more, right? As you see, I'm still in line with the shoulder, but I'm out away from my torso. That, first off, makes the stabilizers work a lot more. So all of the posterior shoulder girdle and the rotator cuff are working a lot there. Now, if we want to challenge that even more, we take it away from the torso anterior and lateral. So you take the kettlebell and we go out on the 45.
Ooh.
So we take that bottoms up position and we hold it out here.
Nice.
Right? If you want to go even further, we can go lateral. That's a lot more challenging. Now, once we are comfortable in holding these positions, the bottoms up position, we can make it more dynamic. So just like we talked about last time, start with static, go to dynamic.
Yep.
So what does dynamic look like for these guys? Well, bottoms up, if we can, hold it here in whatever position you like, core tight, shoulders down, go for a walk. So this would be a bottoms up carry.
Nice.
Right? And just changing position.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Give that a shot.
Okay. Cool.
So again, start with kettlebell in between your feet. Yep. Haha. Pause right there.
Yeah.
That was a great reset. The thing to remember is that when you pick up whatever weight, whether that's kettlebells, dumbbells, barbell, picking it up to get into position is just as important as all of your other reps.
All right.
Yeah.
Further this way.
Yeah.
Okay, stacked. I'm going to try a couple of these.
And then you can just hold that for X period of time. You want to do this hold for 10 seconds, 15 seconds, right? And then you can bring it back to the center and go back out, or you can just call that one rep. It's totally up to you how you want to program this. Ribs down. Yeah, there you go, nice. Ribs down, core on, pack the shoulder tight.
Yeah.
Stay tight. And that's the same thing with your kettlebell deadlift, with your rack positions. Once you're in position, you are in position. Nothing moves. If things are moving, we aren't stable.
Yeah.
When we're not stable, that's when bad things happen.